My name was Hassan. I was a sheikh in the heart of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, an emblem of respect, authority, and unwavering faith. I led prayers, guided souls, and stood as a pillar in a community that revered tradition above all. Yet, beneath my dignified exterior lay a haunting emptiness, a spiritual void that echoed with silent questions. I wore the robes of certainty, but deep inside, darkness whispered doubts I dared not speak. One fateful day, standing on the edge of a fragile scaffold, the world as I knew it shattered beneath me. As I plummeted into the abyss, suspended in that surreal moment on the brink of death, I encountered a light so profound that it transcended all I had ever known. In that radiant presence, I heard a voice calling my name, Hassan. It was Jesus unveiling a truth I had been blind to, a truth that would shatter my previous understanding of faith and freedom. With each revelation, I felt the chains of my belief system crumbling. I was shown a spiritual battle that permeated not just my heart, but the very fabric of society. These insights unearthed a reality where deception reigned, where faith was weaponized in a war against the spirit of humanity itself. I realized that I had not been serving God. I had been serving a facade, an oppressive regime masked as righteousness. When I returned to the land of the living, I was met with hostility. My family turned their backs, my community labeled me a traitor, and I was consumed by fear of losing my identity, my loved ones, and my place in a world that deemed my awakening as heresy. Yet, through the turmoil, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Friends became strangers. Strangers became allies in the pursuit of a truth that was calling to be shared. In the shadows of fear, I began to explore the depths of the gospel, learning more in secret as I sought solace in every scripture. I connected with fellow seekers, each bearing their own scars of rejection. Together, we found a refuge, a new community devoted to truth and freedom. But my soul knew that the mission was clear. I had to voice the revelations bestowed upon me, no matter the price. So here I stand, on the precipice of a new dawn, ready to break the silence that had imprisoned my spirit for too long. This isn't just a story of one man's journey. It's a call to awaken souls everywhere. In a world overshadowed by doubt and deception, I invite you to uncover the truth that can liberate us all. Before we dive deeper, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Comment below. And if you love Jesus as much as I have come to, subscribe now to Truth from Beyond, because the revelations I'm about to share could transform your life forever. The truth is calling. Will you answer? Inside the Great Mosque of Mecca, a sacred serenity enveloped the air, thick with the weight of religious devotion and centuries of tradition. As a sheikh, I had always felt a deep reverence for this place, a space where my faith was both nurtured and challenged. The sounds of murmured prayers filled my ears as I watched the faithful engage in their rituals, all of us united in reverence for something greater than ourselves. Yet, beneath my calm exterior, there was an unsettling disquiet. Deep inside, I wrestled with an inner turmoil, a growing sense of disconnect between the traditions I upheld and the truths I felt were still undiscovered. It was during one specific prayer session that everything changed. As I bowed in submission, I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. The familiar surroundings faded away as darkness engulfed my vision, and suddenly I was thrust into an expansive void. It was terrifying, yet oddly liberating. In that desolate space, a brilliant light emerged, cutting through the darkness like a knife. As I blinked against the brightness, I realized I was not alone. Jesus stood before me, radiating love and warmth that I had never experienced before. "I am here, Ahmed," he said, and with those words an overwhelming sense of peace washed over me, dissolving the doubts I had carried for so long. In that divine moment, Jesus shared revelations that turned my understanding of faith on its head. He began to unveil the hidden agendas that operate within our societies, how the elite manipulate truth, how deception cloaks the world in shadows, and how the spiritual war rages quietly in the hearts of people. I was shown the interconnectedness of our existence, the ways in which our struggles reflect deep-seated societal issues. I saw the wars fought not in the name of righteousness but in service of power and profit. Each vision revealed the distortions of faith that have kept humanity divided, showing me how cultural and religious beliefs could sometimes hinder rather than help. As these truths unfolded, I felt my heart break for those caught up in the lies, those who had been led astray by the very systems designed to protect them. The beautiful teachings I had devoted my life to felt tainted by the manipulation that surrounded us. I began to understand that the true essence of spirituality was often concealed within the layers of tradition that we upheld without question. Jesus emphasized that although these traditions could bind, the pursuit of truth and an authentic connection with Him offered liberation. I stood there, feeling both overwhelmed and empowered, realizing my mission was about more than personal awakening. It was to share this experience with others and help them see the truth buried beneath their own struggles. As the vision began to fade, I found myself back inside the mosque, heart racing, the vibration of the collective prayers still resonating around me. I had been given a gift, insight that could awaken hearts darkened by confusion and fear. The decision to act upon this revelation loomed large in my mind. I could no longer remain silent while the spiritual war continued to cast shadows over so many lives. The thought of confronting the status quo filled me with both excitement and trepidation. Would those around me embrace this message, or would they reject me as a heretic? I felt the urgency to share the awakening I had received, to create dialogues where truth could thrive amidst the deception that permeated our society. With each passing day, the desire to spread this truth intensified, and I began to seek connections with those who shared similar feelings of unrest. I reached out discreetly to friends and fellow scholars who seemed open to questioning their understanding of faith. Together we gathered, sharing stories and experiences, fostering a community where we could openly discuss our revelations and the spiritual war that we faced. Empowered by our collective courage, we envisioned a movement aimed at awakening others, challenging the forces that had long kept us captive. This mission was not merely personal. It was a communal call to arms against the deception that threatened to choke our souls. As I prepared to step out into this new reality, I felt the steadfast presence of Jesus guiding me, pushing me toward a future filled with hope, truth, and the possibility of transformation for all. As I stood within the Grand Mosque in Mecca, a place revered for its spirituality and devotion, I felt an internal dissonance brewing beneath my serious demeanor. I am Hassan, a respected community leader and Quran scholar, known for my deep engagement with the teachings of Islam. Yet, as I observed the faithful around me, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that lingered in my heart. The routines of prayer that once filled me with purpose began to feel like hollow practices, echoing the obligations I had adhered to without question. It was as if I was trapped between the weight of religious duty and a longing to uncover deeper truths. One evening, after a long day of teachings, I lay awake, consumed by thoughts that felt both foreign and familiar. I could sense a growing urgency, a gnawing awareness of something significant that I had been neglecting. It was then that I fell into a deep sleep, and in that slumber, I was thrust into a surreal experience. I found myself in an expanse of darkness, far removed from the vibrant energy of the mosque. I felt lost, but looming in the distance was a brilliant light that drew me closer. As I approached, I realized that it was Jesus, standing in that blinding glow, his presence radiating love and understanding. "Thank you for coming, Hassan," he said, and his voice resonated deep within me, filling the void I had felt for so long. In that moment, all my doubts and fears seemed to vanish. He began to unfold a series of revelations, insights that struck me with an intensity I had never experienced. Jesus illuminated the hidden agendas that poison our world, the manipulation employed by the elite to control masses, fostering division and sowing seeds of fear and distrust. The idea that the very structures of faith I had been raised to protect could serve as instruments of deception was both overpowering and liberating. As I stood in that brilliant light, I felt the boundaries of my understanding expand. Jesus spoke of the spiritual war that is constantly waged within and outside of us, revealing how the true essence of spirituality had been obscured by societal constructs and religious traditions. I saw the ramifications of this deception manifesting in the world. The wars fought in the name of righteousness, the divisions among families and communities, all perpetuated by the false narratives that we accept without questioning. He urged me to recognize that I had a role in this spiritual awakening, a calling to confront the lies that kept people shackled in ignorance. Returning to consciousness, the contrast hit me hard. The dim lighting of my room felt stark compared to the light I had just witnessed. I realized that I could no longer remain silent or complicit in perpetuating truths that did not resonate with the revelations I had received. My duty as a teacher now demanded that I challenge the existing narratives, to speak out boldly about the love of Jesus and the awakening that could free us from the chains of deception. However, the fear of losing the respect of my community loomed large. Would they accept my newfound insights, or would they see me as a traitor to our faith? The stakes felt higher than ever, yet deep down I understood that this new path was about more than just me. It was about sparking a transformation within others, empowering them to seek their own truths amidst the chaos of the spiritual war surrounding us. As I engaged in my daily prayers inside the Grand Mosque in Mecca, I felt an unsettling emptiness creeping into my heart. The atmosphere was charged with spirituality and devotion, yet in the midst of this sacred environment I found myself questioning the very foundations of my faith. As a sheikh, I was seen as a respected figure of authority, one who had devoted his life to the teachings of Islam. Yet, each time I bowed in submission, I sensed a growing disconnection, as though the words I recited were mere echoes without meaning. I had silenced my questioning thoughts for fear of being perceived as a heretic, but the deeper I delved, the more my spirit yearned for understanding. Sleep became a refuge, yet it also harbored the seeds of doubt. I began to have strange dreams. Dreams where shadows danced around me, whispering truths and riddles that stirred my soul. One of those dreams was especially vivid. I found myself in darkness, and suddenly there was a brilliant light that guided me forward. In that light stood Jesus, looking at me with eyes that held compassion and wisdom beyond this world. "Ahmed," he called, and I felt the weight of sacred revelations resting heavily upon my soul. In that moment, the distance between my heart and spirit began to shrink, and a newfound clarity emerged from the depths of my confusion. Jesus spoke of the spiritual war that rages beneath the surface of our lives, a conflict that most are blissfully unaware of. He revealed the hidden agendas woven by the elite, agendas designed to keep humanity ensnared in deception and division. I could see how political systems, social narratives, and even religious institutions were manipulated for control, creating barriers that kept us from truth and togetherness. Each revelation struck me like a thunderbolt, bringing forth a tempest of emotions. I began to understand that the chaos in the world, and in my own life, was not just the result of chance, but rather a manifestation of a deeper spiritual struggle that demanded our awakening. I felt a surge of urgency rising within me. The truths I had been shown were not meant to be kept in darkness. They were meant to be shared, to shine a light on the deception that clouds the hearts of so many. I sensed an undeniable call to action, to step beyond the safety of my traditional role and engage openly in this spiritual war. But then, fear gripped me again, the fear of rejection, the fear of ostracization from my community and family. The weight of that fear threatened to pull me back, but the overwhelming love and truth radiating from Jesus inspired me to push through the darkness. I recognized that true freedom could only come from embracing this calling, and perhaps, in doing so, I could help others find their own path to awakening. As I awoke from that dream, the reality of my surroundings felt starkly different. The mosque, once a place of comfort, now seemed like a cage of expectations and unfulfilled spiritual longing. My heart raced as I pondered how to share the revelations I had experienced without risking the relationships I held dear. I knew that silence would only perpetuate the deception I had come to despise. With every prayer, I asked for guidance. How could I navigate this new path while remaining authentic to the essence of my beliefs? I recognized that my journey was no longer just my own. It was intertwined with the struggles of many others, caught in the throes of spiritual warfare. In my quiet moments, I began to explore what it would mean to step into this mission openly. I envisioned gathering like-minded individuals, creating a space where discussions could flourish without fear. My heart yearned to see others awaken to the truth that Jesus had revealed to me, the truth that could unite rather than divide. With each passing day, the desire to act grew stronger, tempered by the awareness of the risks involved. Yet propelled by a sense of divine purpose, I felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, embracing the awakening that awaited not just myself, but for everyone still searching for light in a world engulfed in spiritual darkness. As I stood on the scaffolding, diligently restoring a section of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, I felt a deep sense of purpose. The air was thick with reverence, and the soothing chants of prayers echoed through the intricate arches surrounding me. This was more than just a job. It was an opportunity to contribute to a sacred space that housed the devotion of millions. Yet, beneath my commitment, I sensed a growing tension within me, an unsettling whisper of doubt that had begun to bubble up during my quiet moments. I was caught in a silent struggle, torn between my religious duties and an internal longing for understanding that lingered just out of reach. It was on that fateful day that everything changed. A sudden misstep sent me tumbling from the scaffolding, and in those panicked seconds, time seemed to stretch infinitely. The ground rushed up to meet me, and I felt a sharp impact before slipping into darkness. What followed was both terrifying and surreal. I found myself in a vast, dark desert, feeling completely disoriented and alone. Panic rushed through me, but it quickly gave way to an inexplicable calm as I began to see a brilliant light shining in the distance. Drawn towards it, I stepped forward, my heart pounding, not knowing what awaited me. As I approached the light, I suddenly felt enveloped in warmth and love, a sensation I had never known before. There stood Jesus, radiating grace and compassion. "Hassan," he called, and in that moment, something within me shifted. The emptiness I had felt for so long began to dissolve, replaced by an overwhelming sense of belonging and understanding. He shared his message with me, revealing profound truths about the spiritual war that raged quietly in the hearts and minds of humanity. I could see how the elite manipulated faith and sowed division, how hidden agendas concealed the pure love and teachings that could unite us all. In this divine encounter, he illuminated the deceptions that had clouded my understanding of faith and life. I watched as societal structures crumbled under the weight of their own lies. I saw the impact of fear and hatred as weapons wielded by those in power to maintain control. The vision expanded to reveal how wars were fought not just with weapons, but through ideologies that kept us divided and in conflict. I felt the urgency in his voice, the call to awaken, to rise against the patterns of deception that permeated our lives. It was a revelation, a truth that demanded to be spoken and shared, not just kept within the walls of my heart. Suddenly, I was jolted back to consciousness. I lay on the ground near the mosque, surrounded by concerned faces, my body aching yet strangely unscathed. The church I had revered was still there, but I was different. The profound experience haunted my thoughts, the teachings of Jesus echoing relentlessly in my mind. I realized that my life was now intertwined with a mission far greater than I had ever imagined. The revelation I had received was a clarion call to break the silence, to confront the hidden agendas that manipulated those around me. Could I muster the courage to share this truth amidst the fear of rejection? Would my family and friends see me as a heretic or as a vessel of hope? As I navigated my new reality, the urgency to reconnect with my faith grew stronger. I began to explore the path Jesus illuminated for me, understanding that genuine spiritual freedom transcended the constraints of tradition. I felt drawn to study the teachings of Jesus more deeply, to understand how I could incorporate his message of love into my life. I prepared myself to share my experience, hoping that by speaking out, I could empower others to awaken from their own slumbers. The truth I had encountered needed to be shared, not just to benefit my own soul, but to give others the chance to experience the liberation that comes from understanding who Jesus truly is and what his message means for all of us. When I regained consciousness, the stark contrast of reality hit me like a tidal wave. I found myself back in the familiar surroundings of my home, the great mosque behind me. The echoes of my encounter with Jesus still resonated in my mind, but now I faced a new battle, one within my family and community. They couldn't understand the transformation that had unfolded, nor could they fathom the truth I had encountered. My heart sank as I began to realize the reactions of those I loved most. They labeled me a traitor, a heretic, casting me aside like I was unworthy of the faith I had dedicated my life to. The rejection stung deeply, leaving me torn between guilt and a yearning for understanding. As the days turned into weeks, I spiraled further into an internal crisis. The burden of my family's disdain weighed heavily on my soul, leaving me questioning everything I had once believed. I felt the isolation pressing down on me, compounded by the fear of losing everything that had previously defined me: a respected sheikh, a loving family member, a dutiful servant of faith. I often replayed my experience with Jesus in my mind, recalling the vast desert and the brilliant light that had illuminated the truths hidden beneath the administration of society. With every memory, a sense of urgency grew within me, but the shadows of doubt remained ever present. Searching for solace, I determined to explore the path laid out before me by Jesus. I began to seek secret knowledge about Christianity and the teachings of Jesus, cautiously navigating through texts and online communities where faith was discussed openly. Each revelation I uncovered deepened my understanding of the spiritual war we all face and the deceptions woven by the elite. I learned about the mechanisms they use to maintain control and keep society divided, often exploiting the very faith that was meant to unite us. It was overwhelming and enlightening simultaneously, propelling me further on my journey while deepening the chasm between my old life and the awakening I now embraced. The people I met in these discussions shared similar experiences of spiritual conflict and awakening, which alleviated some of my loneliness. Together, we explored how to confront the hidden agendas that permeated our society, seeking ways to ignite awareness and cultivate a sense of unity in the face of adversity. Their stories of rejection mirrored my own, and I began to feel a sense of camaraderie among those who had left behind the comforts of conventional wisdom. We engaged in passionate discussions about the potential for change in our communities, envisioning a future where love and understanding triumphed over division and fear. Yet despite the support I found, I couldn't shake my worries about my family's perception of my journey. The fear of their condemnation remained a constant presence in my life. Each time I prepared to share what I had learned about Jesus, I hesitated, wondering if my words would drive an even deeper wedge between us. Still, the light of my awakening urged me onward, compelling me to share the truth with those still in darkness. I knew this spiritual war was far from over, and I felt called to navigate both the inner and outer battles, sowing seeds of hope, truth, and awakening wherever I could. My heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead, knowing that the transformative power of Jesus could light the path for others as it had for me. Driven by a quest for understanding, I found myself increasingly drawn to the teachings of the Bible, the very texts I had been taught to regard with skepticism. Late at night, I would quietly read passages, my heart racing at the truth pouring forth from each page. The words of Jesus resonated deeply within me, revealing not only the beauty of faith but also the profundity of deception that had clouded my understanding. Every moment spent in those texts felt like peeling back layers of a long-hidden truth. I realized I was grappling with something beyond mere curiosity. I was engaged in a spiritual war that demanded my attention and my courage. The process of opening my heart to these new ideas was fraught with tension. Each time I turned a page, I was acutely aware of the risk I was taking. Back in my community, the boundaries drawn by tradition and expectation kept me tethered, and the fear of ostracism loomed large. Would my family still embrace me if they discovered my secret? These thoughts haunted me, and yet, the awakening I experienced made the struggle feel essential. I needed to explore more, to connect with others who had faced similar awakenings. Through online forums and discreet gatherings, I found a small group of individuals who, like me, had heard the call of Jesus and were navigating the treacherous waters of transformation and acceptance. In those meetings, I found not just camaraderie, but a sense of relief. Here were others who understood the fear of leaving behind familiar beliefs, the guilt of questioning long-held traditions. We bonded over our shared experiences, realizing that we were all part of something larger, a collective awakening that challenged the hidden agendas of the elite. Together we discussed our fears about the societal implications of our choices and how the spiritual war extended beyond individual battles. It became increasingly evident that the path forward not only required personal conviction, but also a collective determination to confront the deception wrapped around us. The deeper I delved, the more urgent the need for action became. Each revelation revealed the stark reality of how hidden agendas manipulate society, how wars are fought not only with weapons but with ideologies that exploit our divisions. Jesus' message of love and unity became a rallying cry, a reminder that in order to face this spiritual war, we must embrace the truth that connects us all. In those intimate discussions, I began to solidify my intention to share this awakening with the world. Even as the fear of backlash from my family clung to me, this mission was about more than my own spiritual health. It was about illuminating the path for others still wandering in darkness. Yet every step I took toward this mission was shadowed by the reality of my family's potential rejection. As I envisioned explaining my new beliefs, waves of anxiety washed over me. How could I challenge their worldview without tearing apart the fabric of our relationships? The very thought was appalling, yet the call to advocate for the truth felt overwhelming. I prayed earnestly for guidance, hoping that the understanding and love I now felt could one day reach my loved ones. My journey had transformed me, and with every passing day I could feel the urgency to share these revelations and stand firm in my commitment to awakening others. The battle was not just mine. It was for all souls caught in the crossfire of a spiritual war, demanding our attention and action. Over time, it became undeniably clear to me that my experience with Jesus was not random. I could feel a divine calling pressing against my heart, urging me to warn others about the truth I had discovered. At first, the sheer weight of this revelation was staggering. I spent countless nights wrestling with my thoughts, grappling with the implications of what I had witnessed. The isolation I felt from my community, my family, and my friends only intensified the urgency of my mission. I knew I had to rise against the silence that had held me captive for so long, even if it meant risking everything I had ever known. As I began to reflect on the magnitude of the revelation, thoughts rushed through my mind, thoughts of the spiritual war we all face. I recognized the deception embedded in societal and political structures, perpetuated by the elite who benefit from keeping the masses in ignorance. I had devoted myself to a life defined by tradition, and yet the truth revealed to me by Jesus was shaking the very foundations of my understanding. I could see how easy it was for people to fall into complacency, accepting the narratives laid out before them without questioning the motivations behind them. Every day in the mosque, as I interacted with the faithful, I felt a deep sense of responsibility to speak out. The passion I once had for religious duty had transformed into a fervent desire to share the awakening that could liberate us all. Each interaction became an opportunity for me to plant seeds of doubt about the falsehoods that permeate our lives. I spoke of love, unity, and the importance of striving for the truth, messages that echoed the teachings of Jesus. Yet, each time I shared, I felt the tension rise, both within my heart and in the eyes of those who listened. Their skepticism and fear of the unknown created an invisible barrier, making the task ahead feel even more formidable. As I continued my journey, I connected with small groups of like-minded individuals who had also felt the stirring of awakening. We met in hushed tones, sharing our experiences and fears, forging connections based on our mutual quest for truth. Each story shared reinforced the importance of speaking out against deception. Together, we discussed the impact of technology and media in perpetuating societal division, how the hidden agendas of those in power twisted the very fabric of humanity. Our conversations held a weight of urgency as we acknowledged the need to confront these lies and champion the love that Jesus offers. In my solitude, I often prayed, seeking guidance and strength to take bold steps. I envisioned a world where people could come together, free of the chains of fear and misunderstanding, united in love and truth. Yet, the fear of losing my family's acceptance continued to gnaw at me. Would they ever comprehend the transformation I had undergone? Could I bridge the widening gulf between our beliefs? With every move I considered, the daunting weight of potential rejection bore down on my spirit. Nevertheless, I knew that my path was set. The spiritual war demanded that I stand firm, to speak the truth I had received, and to light the way for others yearning for their own awakening. In a significant act of courage, I made the decision to leave my home, the place where I had grown up, where my family had deep roots and a legacy tied to centuries of tradition. My name is Hassan, and as a Sheikh, my entire life had been devoted to the teachings of Islam. Yet the weight of my spiritual awakening compelled me to seek a space where I could explore and practice my faith openly. The revelations I had received from Jesus had shaken the very foundation of my beliefs, pulling me into a spiritual war that demanded my attention. I felt that in order to fully embrace this journey, I needed to break free from the constraints that bound me. The streets of Mecca once felt familiar, comforting even, but as I walked away from my family, a sense of isolation washed over me. I was leaving behind love and expectation, but I felt an urgent pull toward a mission greater than myself. The teachings of Jesus, filled with love and hope, now burned brightly in my heart. I envisioned those who were still trapped in darkness and doubt, longing for a glimpse of truth. Moving to a new place felt daunting, but the possibility of evangelizing and sharing the message of awakening empowered me. I knew that the path I was taking would not be easy, but each step was guided by a profound sense of purpose that I could no longer ignore. Once I arrived at my new destination, I felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. This was a space where I could connect with others who shared a similar yearning for truth. I sought out small groups of individuals who had also experienced spiritual awakenings and the call of Jesus. Together, we discussed the hidden agendas at play in our communities, how the elite leveraged fear and deception to maintain control over the masses. Each discussion unveiled new insights, revealing how the spiritual war manifested not only in grand geopolitical schemes, but also in the very fabric of our everyday lives. I felt the urgency of our collective mission gripping my heart, compelling us to confront these truths and stand against the forces that sought to divide us. As I delved deeper into these conversations, feeling the camaraderie in our shared struggles, I found both relief and distress. The comfort of community was overshadowed by the realization that embracing this new path meant severing ties with my past. I couldn't deny the grief that came with that choice, especially when it came to my family. They could never understand the drastic shift in my beliefs. Their rigid expectations weighed on my heart like a stone. The fear of condemnation and isolation gnawed at me, yet I felt a divine calling pushing me onward. I prayed earnestly for courage and understanding, yearning for the day when my family might see the truth rather than the heresy they believed I embodied. Struggling yet resolute, I committed myself to sharing the truth that had transformed my life. I sought opportunities to speak at gatherings, sharing my testimony of Jesus and the love that had awakened my spirit. I remember standing before groups, feeling a mix of trepidation and excitement. The words flowed more freely than I had anticipated, fueled by the urgency to spread the message of light. As I spoke, I watched as eyes widened with curiosity and hope, and I sensed a shift in the hearts of those listening. The awakening I sought was not merely my own. It was a community effort, one that could inspire others to rise from the shadows and step into the light of truth. However, I understood that this journey was fraught with challenges, and I couldn't shake the doubts that clung like shadows in the corners of my mind. The legacy of deception was powerful, yet I refused to back down. I realized that my faith had to be a living testament to the truth of Jesus' love. I stood at the precipice of a spiritual awakening, ready to face both the internal and external battles ahead. The path was uncertain, and as I prepared to embrace the next stages of my journey, I felt the guiding presence of Jesus illuminating my way. The spiritual war was escalating, but with each step, my resolve grew stronger. I knew that despite the sacrifices, I had a mission to fulfill, one that would help light the path for others still wandering in darkness. Years have passed since that transformative moment in the Grand Mosque, and as I reflect on my journey, it feels as if I've lived multiple lifetimes within this span. Now residing in a new country, I have dedicated myself fully to the mission of sharing the story of my awakening, driven by the responsibility to help others find their own spiritual freedom. The revelation of Jesus I experienced, his call to love, understand, and confront the hidden agendas that manipulate our world, has become an intrinsic part of who I am. Each day I engage with individuals from different walks of life, hoping to inspire them to pursue their truths, leaving behind the chains of deception that bind them. In this new environment, I have encountered people whom many would consider lost, those burdened by despair, disillusionment, or ignorance. I listen to their stories, reflecting my own journey. As we connect over our struggles, the shared understanding of a spiritual war becomes evident. Through conversations, I reveal how the elite orchestrate division and perpetuate fear, unfolding the layers of deception that often keep us isolated. The urgency of our situation strikes me profoundly, and I feel compelled to act, to share not just my awakening, but the joy of liberation that comes from knowing and following Jesus. In these meetings, I also often reflect on the pain of separation from my family, the loved ones I left behind in my quest for truth. The gulf between us seems insurmountable at times, and yet, I hold tightly to hope for reconciliation one day. My heart aches for them to understand the depth of love and peace I now know. I wish to share with them that there's more to faith than mere adherence to tradition. As I pour into this new community, I realize that every connection I make reinforces my belief that love can bridge even the widest divides, including those I maintain with my own family. As I step into the role of a witness, I embrace the responsibility to serve others, echoing the teachings of Jesus in every word I share. I've witnessed incredible transformations in individuals who had long languished under the weight of societal expectations. As they awaken to the possibility of something greater, I find my own spirit invigorated. Together, we cultivate a movement toward truth, nurturing the seeds of spiritual rebellion against the hidden agendas that seek to snuff out our light. Each testimony of transformation fortifies my own resolve. Each story a reminder that we are all part of this larger journey toward awakening and enlightenment. Yet amidst this hope lies a persistent tension. The fear of losing connection still lingers, and the voices of dissent from my past can sometimes drown out the encouragement I feel in my mission. But with each passing day, I remind myself of the power of truth and the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity. The road ahead may be fraught with challenges, but I know that Jesus walks with me, guiding my steps and illuminating the path for others. It is this assurance that inspires me to continue fighting the spiritual war, to challenge the deceptive narratives that bind us, and to advocate tirelessly for love, compassion, and understanding in a world so desperately in need of awakening. Inside the Great Mosque of Mecca, I had always felt a profound sense of purpose as a sheikh. My days were filled with the teachings and traditions that had guided my life. Yet, beneath this exterior of devotion, I grappled with a growing emptiness, a spiritual void that I feared acknowledging. My prayers, once fervent expressions of faith, had become increasingly mechanical. Each recitation felt more like an obligation than a connection to the divine. As I watched the faithful around me surrender themselves in worship, I couldn't help but feel a sense of longing for something deeper, something real, an experience that would awaken the truth hidden beneath the layers of tradition. One fateful day, while overseeing a group of workers restoring an adorned section of the mosque, I lost my footing on the slick scaffolding. In an instant, I was plunged into darkness, the ground rushing up to meet me. But instead of an end, I found myself in a surreal realm, a vast and empty desert devoid of the familiar, filled only with a heavy silence. In that dark expanse, a light began to emerge in the distance, growing brighter and more brilliant as I moved toward it. As I drew closer, I was met by the figure of Jesus, radiating a warmth that enveloped me with immense love and understanding. "Ahmed," he called, and in his voice I felt a resonance that tugged at the very core of my being. Jesus began to share profound revelations, illuminating truths about the spiritual war that raged beneath the surface of our society. I saw how the elite manipulate beliefs and practices, weaving a hidden agenda that produces division and chaos. He revealed how political and religious systems serve to maintain control over the populace, diverting us from our true spiritual paths. In that holy space, I witnessed the ripple effects of deception, wars fought in the name of peace, communities torn apart by ideological conflicts, and the myriad ways we've been conditioned to accept false narratives. Each revelation struck me with the force of truth, shaking my foundations and igniting a fire for awakening within my heart. As I returned to consciousness, the stunning clarity of my experience lingered with me, but so did the heavy burden of my reality. I was surrounded by people praying, but I felt utterly alone, trapped in a world of fear and misunderstanding. My community had always revered me, and yet I began to feel the chilling truth. My awakening would not be welcomed, especially by my family who were deeply rooted in tradition. The fear of rejection weighed heavily on me, threatening to silence the truth that now felt imperative to share. Could I speak about Jesus and the revelations I had received without being cast aside as a heretic? The internal conflict roared within me as I wrestled with both the powerful urge to share and the paralyzing fear of losing everything I loved. In those quiet moments of contemplation, I turned to prayer, seeking Jesus' guidance on how to navigate this new terrain. I craved the courage to confront the hidden agendas that continued to bind my community in deception. I became drawn toward studying the Bible, exploring the teachings of Jesus with fervor. Each verse illuminated the understanding that transformed my life, igniting a passion to share this awakening with others. But how could I confront those around me who were so entrenched in other beliefs? The challenges ahead felt daunting, yet the thought of remaining silent was unfathomable. I knew that the journey was meant for more than just myself. It was about breaking barriers, connecting with others, and challenging the very fabric of life that had brought us to this point of division and confusion. My mission took on new dimensions as I sought to connect with people who shared similar experiences. I discovered small groups of believers who quietly met, sharing their struggles, heritages, and journeys toward truth. We would candidly discuss our fears about stepping outside the boundaries of tradition, the tension of confronting a spiritual war that demanded our attention. Each gathering filled me with a sense of purpose and relief. Together we crafted a safe space to explore the teachings of Jesus, seeking to illuminate the truth and cast light on the hidden agenda that deceives so many. The urgency of our dialogues hinted at the potential of a larger movement, one that could empower individuals to rise, confront their own fears, and embrace the light of revelation in a world longing for awakening. Now that you've walked with me through this journey of faith and awakening, I must ask you something profound. Have you ever felt the call of a deeper truth resonating from within you? Something that challenges the very fabric of what you've always believed. As I tumbled from the scaffolding that day, I not only confronted death, I encountered a revelation that shook my soul. Looking into the eyes of Jesus, I saw the looming shadows of deception that cloud our understanding not just of faith, but of our very existence. We are caught in a spiritual war, my friends, one that transcends politics, cultures, and identities. This war is waged for our hearts and minds, where forces seek to divide and manipulate us through fear and indifference. I once stood as a pillar of authority, but my awakening revealed that all is not as it seems. There lies a truth so powerful, so transformative, that it is meant to liberate not just individuals, but entire communities. This isn't simply my story. It's a call to every soul yearning for freedom. So I ask you, have you felt the stirrings of truth within you? Have there been moments, whispers in prayer, or dreams that made you question everything? Share your experiences below. I want to hear your stories. Remember, you are not alone in this struggle. We are all navigating the darkness in search of light, and together, perhaps we can illuminate the path forward. If my words resonate with you, please don't leave without subscribing to Truth from Beyond. Hit that notification bell, because the revelations ahead are essential for our mutual awakening. Each new episode aims to dive deeper into this spiritual war, revealing the layers of truth hidden beneath our current reality. In our next video, I will share the testimony of another individual who experienced their own powerful encounter with the divine, someone who broke free from their shackles as they faced their darkest fears. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this chapter. I'm Hassan, and remember this: in the pursuit of truth, we find the light that guides us home.